if reposted.
So, Mr. Keller, I would like to preface today's episode by saying when someone meets you for the first time, like I did, you look at you and you go like, oh, he is a manly man. He's a big guy. I met you at a poker game. I was like very male, male, male. But anybody gets to know you knows you are a Renaissance man. You're a chef. You made my family dinner. I bet right now if someone said, hey, Andrew, will you make me a cake? You probably could. So having said that, I would like to read today's quote from Erma Bombeck. Seize the moment. Remember all those women on the Titanic who waved off the dessert cake. Andrew Keller, I know you're an actor, you're watching Wait. How often do you eat dessert?
Ooh. I probably have dessert once or twice a week, but it's not really a planned thing. I guess I'm fortunate in that my fiance does not like dessert, so it's not like she gets it and I have to have it too. It's a fun little thing. I would like to point out though, I bested your sister-in-law twice in a cake baking contest, so let's give me credit for that.
And I really feel that way. Like someone looks at you like, oh, he's a manly guy, but you also know your way around a kitchen. And I'm assuming, as you just mentioned, you could bake a cake. So sweets are in your wheelhouse. Did you grow up eating sweets? Did your family like have a dessert as a thing?
I don't remember it being a thing. I kind of just remember I was more impulsive and pleasure seeking when I was younger and be like, hey, there's some cookies. I'm going to eat them. Actually, I got to be honest. I don't buy dessert and I don't keep sweets in my house because I will eat them. I have enough self-control at the grocery store to not buy them. But if I have a box of cookies, I'm like, I'm going to have two. And then I'll put them away and I'll go in the other room and I'll be like, the cookies want me.
Okay, so I don't want to mess with your methodology, but you said you eat dessert 2 times a week, but yet you don't buy dessert. So then how are the 2 times a week that you get dessert?
Oh, I'll go to the store and buy something specific just to eat it then.
Wow, that's some dessert treating. I love that. You actually go, like I have a hankering right now. I'm going to go get some lemon bars.
Yeah. Do you eat dessert?
I do most nights eat dessert. And the main reason is in our house, like desserts like are a must for the kids. Like they will literally overturn the table if they do not get dessert after dinner. But here's the rule with desserts. I never care if they eat their dinner. I cook the meals in our house. I never care. You don't want to eat your food, that's fine, but you don't get dessert. And we don't have a discussion. It's not a debate. I go like, hey, if you don't want to eat your broccoli, cool with me, no problem. You're done with dinner, brush your teeth. But that means you do not get dessert, and people lose their minds.
Well, I mean, dessert's important to some people. What did you think about this quote, though? Like, I had a pretty strong reaction, and I thought this discussion was going to go a different way. But do you think you should seize the moment and take advantage of it, or do you think it should be more planned out, your pleasure?
Well, I feel like a lot of what we talk about here on Reposted is like balance. Like, you shouldn't drink coffee all day long. You should have a cup of coffee, like maybe, once in a while. You probably shouldn't eat dessert every night, or maybe like dessert is nuts or some sorbet or something like that. Like, I think this is saying like, hey, if you're on the Titanic, guess what? Maybe you should order dessert. Now, having said that, it's very rare, like when I'm out, nobody goes to the restaurant anymore, but when I would go to the restaurant, I usually fill up on the food and then I don't normally order dessert. It's like very rare when I'm out that I'll be like, you know what? I would love the cheesecake because I usually kind of fill up on the meal.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out Irma was a humorist. And so it was kind of a lot of, there's comedy in it. So you can't take it too seriously. But I did go down the rabbit hole of like delayed gratification. And Are you seeking pleasure in that moment or are you seeking happiness? And it made me think of like Kobe Bryant famously was always the first one into the gym and the last one out of the gym. And he put in the work and he did he like quote skipped the desserts to become a champion and to become the best. So I think the delayed gratification is an important part of life.
Well, I just don't think like kind of in between desserts and humor, like it's not a zero-sum game, right? Like Kobe made it a zero-sum game. Like I'm going to win at all costs. And like, I can't imagine going through life and never like having ice cream with my kids during stuff. Like, you know what? I'm so dedicated to winning an NBA title. I'm just not eating dessert. Like, I don't think that's like the way life should be. Like every once in a while, as the Titanic goes down, maybe you get to have an apple pie, piece of apple pie.
So everything in moderation, including moderation.
Yes. The funny thing about I always think about Kirk when we do these things, but Kirk like hates sweets. Like he probably has gone a month without having any dessert.
What is dessert though? Is it like a treat in the night, like pouring yourself a bourbon? Is that considered dessert?
No, I really think that's different. I'm glad you brought that up. Like, I think that's a different thing. Like, I think drinking is different. I mean, that's just my opinion, I guess. But I think because sometimes I'll have a dessert and a drink. But maybe sometimes like, if I don't eat dessert, I'll have a drink. I think that's a different category because Kirk is like a liquid guy. He like loves liquids way more than he loves foods. And so I think dessert and booze are different.
I mean, I guess in the delayed gratification or seizing the pleasure in the moment. Last night, I normally don't drink during the week, but I was like, I'm gonna pour myself a drink, and I finished off some gin I had, and I was like, I want another one, and I knew that I was gonna wake up this morning a little bit slower, and I did, and so it's like way out the rewards. I don't think anyone, or I guess the most common thing people say when a hangover is like, I'm never gonna drink again. So like you seize that pleasure in the moment, but you regretted it. So, I don't know. I think Erma has an interesting quote.
I think you're on one side of this because you have great self-control. Like if you told yourself like, hey, you know what? I am not going to eat dessert for a month. You literally wouldn't eat dessert for a month. But I don't think the average person could do that. I'm just like the average American, not the people Like the average American, I would say the over-under is probably 5 nights a week the average American has dessert. Like some sort of treat, like an M&M or a scoop of ice cream.
The most ridiculous thing you've said, this is the 135th episode of our show, is it someone to eat one M&M? What is that?
Three M&Ms. I got to tell my favorite story. This is my favorite dessert story of all time, and it involves Kirk's dad. We went to Las Vegas. We went to one of those places. So Kirk is very Midwestern. So his dad's they're just Midwest people. I have not been around a lot of Midwestern people, but there was a crew of Midwestern guys that I was there with. So we went to one of those unlimited meat places where you're like shaving the meat, and then you can eat unlimited amounts of meat.
Yeah.
I was so full after this meat. Like I just couldn't barely like just have anything. The waiter comes over and says like, would you guys like it? And Kirk's dad says like, I'd love a bowl of ice cream. I was just like, that is unbelievable. His routine is like, he's got to have the ice cream after the dinner. And I was like, man, I can't even breathe air, and you're going ice cream.
There's always room for ice cream, Larry. I'm going to give my favorite dessert story. My grandfather, one time we were driving back to my parents' house after Thanksgiving, and it's quiet in the car, and after a few minutes, he just says quietly, I shouldn't have had that 7th piece of cake. What?
Well, who should ever have had the 7th? Like, he speaks for all mankind.
Oh,
Nobody.
Man. Yeah. Well, if you have the meat sweats, please reach out. You can find us at Reposted Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. I'm Andrew Keller for OC Larry saying, thanks for stopping by.